Anybody else have a question?
Yeah.
Good job, Lisa. Because you got a gift.
Yeah. But it's just, it makes me think a lot. It makes me think a lot because I was raised in Philadelphia, and I was always taught stranger danger, don't talk to strangers, don't do this, don't do that. And I've had, like, I'd be walking to like the store down the street, and I've had men, like there's an instance where a man pulled up in like a van with no windows and stuff, and then he was like, "Oh, do you need a ride?" And I'm just like, I'm not an idiot. So like it just made me paranoid that he was like one of those.
And always listen to your sixth sense.
Yeah.
And if someone's following you in a vehicle, what should you do?
Run.
That, and what else could you do? That,
Oh, what else?
Go onto like a public area.
I would, yeah. Oh, they're all good. I was thinking walk the other way then, because they can't turn around. Do you know what I mean?
Nice.
Yeah, like turn around and walk the other way. Because you can turn around quicker than them. You know what I mean? But all the things you said are good. Just don't get in the van, right? That's the main thing.
I was just like, that's just common sense to me now. I'm like,
Right.
Does he really think I'm that stupid that I'm gonna get in a car with a stranger with the stereotypical like creeper van? Like, I'm just it just makes me laugh as somebody who was just like raised under that whole be aware thing. But I wouldn't be like too surprised if there was somebody that was not taught that.
Right.
And that would get into the van with him.
Well, they say that the pimps know exactly where to go to find vulnerable girls. Like a runaway will be contacted by a pimp within like 48 hours of running away from home. They hang out at the bus stations and the shopping malls and all these. So they, I mean, they're businessmen. They know how to do things.
How is this related, if related at all, to sociology of the family?
Well,
That's a good question.
I mean, actually, it's very related on a number of counts. In the sense that I think would you be studying sort of how a family copes with crisis?
Yeah, so that could be
in sociology of the family? Because you have two models. You have sort of what's happening in the international setting, where you have extreme poverty, and you also have many cultures that devalue women and girls. And so the girls are last in line to get an education. They are the ones who typically will require a dowry, which isn't just Asian countries. You see something like that in African countries also. And so, very practically speaking, a very poor father sees this daughter is kind of a liability. And I only say that in practical terms. So you have that tension, that pressure on the family to, number one, as you can see in the case of India, China too, not to have girls. And so you have female infanticide going on. And then when you do have girls, sometimes they'll try to marry them off as soon as they possibly can. So I was in Nepal in 2008, and I'm not kidding. I read in the newspaper a guy who had his 5-year-old and his 8-year-old promised in marriage already. Now that's the international setting, but you turn to here in the U.S., what's going on? Our divorce rate is 50% or so. So you have a lot of single-parent households, a lot of broken things, going on in there. People kind of looking for, kids growing up in that, or you're looking for identity, esteem, love in some ways. You have the poverty as well playing into that, and so when you are a vulnerable person, someone who has there's something empty on the inside that you're wanting to fill and you're not quite sure what it is. You're willing to take a proposition that maybe in a better time, in a better place, you wouldn't consider, in your right mind. But you're vulnerable. You're more open to that. And so So that's what happens. And then you have, consequently, fathers who are offering their daughters in prostitution. You have uncles who will do this. You have aunts. You have even clergy. People are induced into this for a lot of different reasons. And so it takes really a sociological look into what are those family structures, what are those societal structures to identify where is that vulnerability, and what are the factors that sort of cause that, to begin to sort of break down and unpack how this can be reduced in our culture.
Which just seems like that's how deep the problem goes then, because you can have kids who are like, the kids are going to school every day, but their dad or their uncle or someone or their neighbor is, when they come home, forcing them into prostitution basically. So it's not always the runaways or the kids from people from other countries. It could be people that just seem to live a normal life, but then there's a whole other stuff going on.
And there's a book, The Girl Next Door, which is about a girl who in high school, she was popular, she was smart, but when she befriended this popular guy and started like going over to his house and things, he took advantage of her, but then used, and that one night when he did, he took a lot of pictures, and he used that then as leverage against her. He said, I'll show these pictures to the community and your parents will know. The whole school will know. And she was scared. And so she then would sneak out at night and became a prostitute for his family's little business, all because of that. And she was living and going to high school just like a normal person.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Kat.
Is there like any international organizations fighting this issue?
Yeah, there are a lot of organizations, something like International Justice Mission, Shared Hope International, Not for Sale campaign, those are a few. And what we do at Free is we're not trying to be the solution to this. Rather, what we are, and this is where I was explaining to you that if you have no money and all those things, you can get involved. It's because I can do this by pointing to the fact that the problem is here.
Right.
Thinking through what needs to be done, because there already are best practices. There already are experts that I can just talk to and say, what would you do in Berks County? And then there already are organizations that are doing this, and all I have to do is say, you know what, could you come here and do that little thing that you do to teach law enforcement? So we brought some folks in, they taught law enforcement. We've had people come in and speak in our prisons. And so you as a person who understands the problem that's happening in your community can appeal to these organizations and say, look, come in here. I know you're looking, they're looking for ways to use what they do. Well, here's a place where you can do that. And so you, just by speaking up, can bring all of the power of those resources. It could be our government. I'm using government materials and government funding for something. You can bring all the power of that right into your community because you took a moment to care, to think it through, and then ask those questions.
Have there been cases actually in the U.S. where families would sell like their daughters or sisters or whatever into prostitution?
Yes. Yep. In fact, there was one in New Jersey where it was a family business not too long ago. I think it was a year ago in the summer where they found it. And these are the kinds of things where it's kind of where there's smoke, there's fire. So if you get one case, that's because, as I said, they only catch 1 in 10 of these guys. So at best. Well, yeah, not even those great odds. So basically it's an indicator that it's happening in a lot of other cases. It's just we're not aware of what's going on. In fact, just in Chambersburg, which is not too far from here, you just head out by Gettysburg area. There was a case in May of 2010, couple girls were at a juvenile home, and they ran away for the weekend, kind of joyriding sort of thing, and got connected to this lady in town in Chambersburg, and she offered them drugs and money and such, and got them involved in prostitution. Bang, just like that, just from running away. And one of them was able to escape, so she was able to get them help after the first night. But that's how quick something like that can happen.
Yeah, you don't even
right
expect
here.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't expect it in your own neighborhood.
No.
Yeah.
And Craigslist, I'm sure you've heard of Craigslist being used for prostitution. Well, the other big one is Backpage.com. And so they're using that here in the Reading area. The guys who are looking for prostitutes are using that. And there was a guy in August of 2010 who was convicted of setting up his own website. Right here in this area, he had 2 apartments that he rented out, and he even talked a police officer into helping him. And they would bring women back and forth. And 4 of the girls who were part of this 20-woman business were under 18. And you think, well, what in the world would they be doing? And as I talk with people who kind of knew about the case, they're like, well, they were bad girls. A lot of them had, like a track record. They'd been in for, a drug case, or they'd been in for shoplifting or something like that. Well, you talk about restoring people's lives. I don't look at a life like that as being one that's just, they had it coming. Do you know what I mean? When you look at that, you have to think, did they choose this lifestyle?
Right.
Did they go to college and say, that's the job I want? Or was there something, a succession of things that happened in their lives that influenced them in that direction, so that they came to the point in their mind where they thought, this is the only thing that I can do. And yes, they chose that. And so they are responsible on the one hand, and yet no one's responsible for being exploited by another person. Don't ever let someone let you think that. When someone does something to you that's wrong, it's just plain wrong. And they need to be punished for that. No matter how complicit you may have been at all in that process, if they do something wrong, it needs to be punished. And there are people here who want to let you speak out and see that resolved.
Would you think this trace back to like 1600s when the fathers would mark off their daughters to like rich families, the husbands, so they can get like money from other families?
Yeah, I mean, it keeps happening, absolutely. And when you look at the different cultures, it happens for something as innocuous as the color of their skin. So I was in Sri Lanka, and the color of the girl's skin in Sri Lanka is just below India, and so it's an Asian country. And the color of these young girls' skins is a sort of appealing to Middle Eastern people. And so they do labor trafficking to take girls out of Sri Lanka to take them into Iraq or Kuwait or Jordan or some other place like that, just because of the color of the skin. The girls in Nepal have a lighter skin because their folks there are mixed in kind of with the Chinese and the areas in there, lighter than in India, very dark skin, and so they found that very appealing, and so they traffic the girls in just because someone likes the way somebody looks, which reinforces yet again the fact that people are just being used in this whole process. So you can't, I don't think you can ever look at pornography or prostitution. In fact, I hope that when you leave here, that you never see either of those two things the same way again, because people are being used just because of the way that they look. Think about it.